If Bronny James seriously wants to be a rotational piece for the Lakers this year, he would just have to buy into two simple things. One, being a menace on defense, and two, finding ways to score off the ball. But in the past year and a half, Bronny hasn't developed those parts of his game at all. Everything we've seen from him so far in the summer league and preseason is him handling the ball and playing a pick and roll, which I really don't understand. First, the Lakers already have 3 elite shot creators on their roster, and 2 of them are also going to go down as all-time great passers. So, if Bronny was actually serious about getting playing time and contributing to LA winning, he was going to have to find ways to be effective away from the basketball. And with the way his game is trending, I really don't see Bronny having a job in the NBA over the next couple of years. Now, the very first thing people have to accept is that Bronny James is just straight up not a good shooter. Over the past 2 years, I've collected all the 3-point shots that Bronny has taken, which includes his numbers from college, preseason, summer league, G League, and the NBA. Over this span, Bronny has taken exactly 284 threes, and he made a total of 78, which puts his number at just over 27% from behind the line. And even more recently, in the span of preseason games, Bronny's outside shooting hasn't looked any more promising. Now sure, he may have a couple of games where he gets hot from behind the line, but the bigger sample size shows that he's just flat out not a good shooter, and people need to stop overreacting to 1 or 2 hot games. Now, when looking at Bronny's actual shooting mechanics, I really don't see anything majorly wrong. He has a solid base, good hand placement on the ball, and he gets up in one smooth motion. I think if Bronny has space and his feet are set, he's for sure a more than capable shot maker. But I think there are 2 primary things that pull those numbers down. First, a big chunk of Bronny's outside looks are both off the dribble and contested. And for about 95% of players, the more difficult their shots are, the lower their numbers are going to be. Out of pick and roll, teams have been comfortable giving Bronny space and letting him rise up. And again, if the guy is shooting below 30% from these looks, shots like this are always going to be a win for the defense. And second, Bronny doesn't do the necessary work off the ball to find easier looks. In the half court, if the ball is in his hands, he's pretty much a corpse, just standing around and ball watching, and rarely looking to cut or relocate. We'll see the ball here get driven towards the left block, but look how Bronny on the opposite wing stays glued up. From this spot, he should be relocating over to the opposite slot, and this will either lead to an open shot or a closeout to attack. But that lack of movement forces this lob pass out of the paint, which then forces the Lakers into standstill offense late in the shot clock. And Bronny's lack of activity is also very apparent in transition, where he makes it a habit to just coast and lag behind the ball. And this is a real negative because out in transition, that's one of the best times to capitalize on a scrambling defense. And for a guy like Bronny who may not be super talented with the ball in his hands, he should be more hungry to find easier buckets. So him not showing effort here is pretty puzzling. So if James off the ball is not a consistent shooter and doesn't have the motor to move and find easier buckets, this is going to put a lot of pressure on his ability to actually create offense with the ball in his hands. And for where Bronny is at as an NBA player, there's just not a lot of positive things to talk about. Again, the outside shooting is not there, and defenses have been happy to let him walk into pull-up threes over and over again. And because Bronny is just 6'3" and doesn't get a ton of lift into his shot, that handicaps his ability to create space and rise up in the mid-range. And while he may be a good athlete when playing downhill with a head of steam, I still don't see him being this elite interior paint scorer. He doesn't have very good touch on his floaters and in-between push shots, and in general, I don't think he has a lot of depth to his game in the paint. He doesn't play off 2 feet, use Euro steps, or find any creative angles in traffic. If he has momentum and space, he can generate some points, but as soon as he's dealing with length or an extra defender, it's pretty easy to funnel him into a miss. We'll see him here explode to his left and knife towards the basket. And as his big rotates down, look how Bronny is going to pick up and try to decelerate off his right foot. But from this spot, he doesn't have the lift or touch to finish over all this size. So from all 3 levels as a scorer, Bronny is just not that good. I'll say it again. He's shooting in the 20s from 3, his mid-range game is pretty much non-existent, and because he's 6'3" and doesn't have a lot of depth to his finishing game, his scoring around the basket is going to be an uphill battle. Now, one area where I do think Bronny has actually gotten a lot better at is going to be his passing. Out of pick and roll, he's gotten pretty comfortable finding the roller. He can time these lob passes or needle these tight pocket passes. Plus, he's also getting comfortable reading the second side of the floor. I think for a second-year guard, these are some legit reads. But at the same time, with the ball, there's too many deficiencies that limits Bronny's ability to get to these spots to play make. First, at the point of attack, Bronny's handle has been very shaky. If he's matched up with a defender who's quicker, longer, and more physical than he is, it's pretty common for him to get sped up off the dribble and forced into turnovers. And that lack of ball security also bleeds into his play out of pick and roll, where off the dribble he really lacks pace and doesn't look to read the defense. He often blasts off these picks without setting his man up, and this makes it easier for the man guarding the ball to stay attached, which nullifies any kind of advantage. And then if teams decide to switch and play him straight up, Bronny doesn't have the game to generate consistent one-on-one offense. So while Bronny has gotten better as a passer, his inability to absorb pressure and play with pace doesn't really allow him to get to the spots where he can consistently use it. So as an overall offensive player, there's nothing really consistent that Bronny James brings to the table. He's inefficient from all three levels, isn't a reliable ball handler, plus he's pretty inactive off the ball. I think the only way for Bronny to survive offensively is to find ways to make the game easier by screening, cutting, relocating off the ball, and finding ways to get open catch and shoot threes. Then he can leverage that outside threat to attack closeouts off the catch. But again, Bronny's focus and effort from these spots is simply not there. And from what I see, I think there's a big separation between what the Lakers need from Bronny on the court versus what he's actually doing. And I think a lot of this goes back to his play in the Summer League, where most of Bronny's usage was him operating with the ball out of pick and roll, which again I don't understand. Because if Bronny wants to be a legit NBA player, his role is not going to be him handling the ball and taking step back threes. And this isn't me trying to throw shade at him, because the truth is there's only a handful of players in the world who really have the juice to lead an NBA offense. And Bronny just isn't that caliber of talent. So again, going back to the Summer League, why is the guy playing like he's a lottery pick on the bottom of a barrel team? The Lakers this year may not have a perfect roster, but they're for sure going to be playing in the postseason. And if Bronny during that time really wants to get playing time, I guarantee you his role isn't going to be to handle the ball and create offense. To be completely honest, it looks like it's all about just garnering attention and getting a few viral clips. Sure, it looks cool for Bronny to hit a step back three or get a monster dunk in traffic, but when it comes to him actually building a role and impacting winning, that's simply not going to be his game at the NBA level. Now, when switching over and looking at Bronny's defense, this is where I get even more frustrated, because from a build standpoint, I think Bronny has the foundation to be a really good backcourt defender. He has quick feet and can get off the floor pretty well.
That was a very strange year for all the reasons we said.
And all those physical tools carry over to his defense and gap. Watch him here shift across to help on this ball screen, to then rotate back out to the shooter. But while Bronny has the talent to be a good defender, the focus and intensity is not there. This is literally his first defensive possession of the preseason, and as the ball crosses half court, look how Bronny is jogging back half asleep with his back turned, and as the screen gets set, he's a step behind in help and a step behind in rotating out to the corner. This is another focus error, where Bronny at the elbow loses track of his man, allows himself to get brush screen, and gives up this backdoor cut. When defending on the ball, Bronny also has a hard time containing ball handlers in open space. It's easy for them to attack his body and open up his stance, and then once Bronny gets beat, there's not a whole lot of commitment to get back in front and recover. And that lack of physicality and motor on the ball also affects Bronny's defense out of pick and roll. He's easy to screen and often a step behind. Look how he avoids contact on this pick, and as the ball handler comes off, he automatically has enough space to rise up. So, it may seem like I'm being very nitpicky with Bronny's defense, but if he's giving you little to no production on offense, he has to at least be a positive defender. But from all the film I've watched, and I've watched literally every play of the preseason, Bronny is not a committed defender. Now, when stepping back and looking at Bronny's game from a bird's eye view, I think his only path forward is to be a monster defender, who is also an active floor spacer off the ball. But from what I've seen over the summer to now, I really don't know what Bronny's building towards. If you're under 6'5", not a great shooter, not a super elite ball handler or passer, doesn't make the game easier for himself or his teammates off the ball, while also being an inconsistent defender, there is pretty much never going to be a spot for you in the NBA. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments where the kids should break down next. The kids here.